Hello, 6th grade. All right, today for reading, we're going to start our first lesson of our review for the week. This week we're going to be reviewing for the quiz or test. I'm not quite sure what size it'll be yet, so we'll call it an assessment. We're going to be reviewing for an assessment next week over the things we've been learning during this e-learning time. Not every single thing, but the major ones. So the first thing I need you to do is I'd like you to go to Google Classroom and find the assignment called Study Guide. Then I'd like you to open the Google Doc called 6th Grade Reading Study Guide. I have my own copy open right here, and let me get rid of this, and I'll show you how to work on this in just a moment. So this week, what we're going to be doing is going through these questions on your study guide, not all of them at once. We'll just be doing the first two sections, making predictions, and the big question today. But when you take the assessment next week, you'll be able to use this study guide as your notes. It's like an open note test. So you can also use the old Edpuzzle videos as well, but finding an answer for a question using the Edpuzzle videos will take a very long time. So I highly recommend you fill out these questions as we go over them. And I'll make sure that we go over each question and you get an answer for it. So open this up in one tab and then go on back to the video that you have open in the other tab, and we can start answering a few of these questions. Okay, so let's see. So you've opened up Study Guide and found the 6th grade reading one. And then as we go, we're going to type in those answers. Now, every time you see one of these book icons in the PowerPoint, that means that information by that icon is going to go into the study guide. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'll try to make sure to alert you when we find that kind of information, but just in case, keep your eyes open for this green book. Okay. So making predictions. Now, remember, a prediction is an educated guess about something that may happen in the future. So this is our first instance of the book icon coming up. So let's go to our study guide right up here, and there's the question, what is a prediction? Well, if we look at our PowerPoint, we see that a prediction is an educated guess about something that may happen in the future. Now, on the study guide, each of you get your own copy of it. So you can type whatever you want on it. No one else will see it unless I look at it, and it's just your stuff. So go ahead and click underneath that first question, add some spaces so that you get kind of indent so you know where the or what question you're answering, and then write your answer right here. So what is a prediction? A prediction is, let's see, an educated guess about something that happens in the future. All right, there we go. So if you'd like to, and I would recommend this as well, go ahead and highlight your text, click this A, and let's choose a different color, just so that when you look at this later, you can easily see your answers and not just have a whole bunch of black letters. All right, let's get back into it. So, a prediction, educated guess about something that may happen in the future. A prediction is always going to be based off of some kind of evidence. Maybe it's based off of current events. You could say, because we've been playing well, we'll have a good season. You know, in whatever sport you're playing. That's a good prediction that you could make based off what has been happening. Maybe it's based on far past events. If I failed my test after not studying last time, then I will fail this time. That's a prediction you could make based on history. All right, we make these predictions when we read stories as well. So let's take a look at what are some things in stories that help us make these predictions. Now, these are, as you can see, things that we're going to need to write in the study guide. So, if you look at the study guide, the question says, what are some things in stories that can help us make predictions? I'd like you guys to answer with each of these different things. So the first one is going to be knowing what a character did in the past. If you know how a character tends to act, you can guess how they're going to act in similar situations in the future. So go ahead and write this underneath number 2. In the study guide. All right, the second one, seeing the secret thoughts or actions of a character. If you are reading a book, then you get to see what a character's thinking and what they're doing that maybe other characters don't get to see. If a character said, "Oh yeah, I promise I'll come to your birthday party," but they were crossing their fingers behind their back, which means they're not going to do what they said, then you, the reader, know and can predict they're not going to that birthday party, but the other characters would not be able to know that. So go ahead and write this one in your study guide as well. All right, knowing popular tropes. So a trope is a fancy word for a pattern in storytelling. In storytelling, lots of authors tend to do kind of the same things. Not everybody, but here's one really popular pattern, or one really popular trope. If there's a main character that's a guy and a main character that's a girl, usually the author will tend to have those two fall in love. So if you read a story and there's a main character with a guy and a girl, you can probably guess, okay, you can predict they're going to fall in love probably. That is a trope. That's a pattern that occurs in storytelling. So go ahead and write this in your study guide. Okay, and the last one for this section, knowing the author's style. Let's say you've got a favorite author and you've read all their books, and in all their books, the good guys always win in the end. As you're reading their newest book that just came out, you can probably predict, yeah, the good guys are probably going to win. You might not even realize that you're predicting that, but your brain recognizes patterns that you've seen in the past and allows you to predict this. Okay, write this one down. It's a study guide thing as well. These are all under number 2, okay? All right, let's move on. How do you write a prediction? Well, it's pretty basic. You just say, I predict that, and then you write your prediction, because, and then you give your reason. And your reason might be something that has to do with one of these 4. Let's take a look at an example. So let's imagine there's a queen who's asking her advisor if she thinks it is wise to go fight alongside her troops. We did this example a while ago, so maybe you remember it. The passage of this book, of this story, might read, "What do you think? Will it be safe for me to go into battle with them?" the queen asked, looking out her window to the peaceful fields below. "Of course, your majesty," replied the advisor. "What could go wrong?" She bowed low to the queen, and as her face was hidden from view, gave a wicked grin. Okay, so we get to see this right here, gave a wicked grin. But the queen does not see that her advisor is doing that. So we can predict something is going to happen. So I'd like you to write your prediction about what you think will happen for number 3, I believe, in our study guide. And remember, write it like this. I predict that, insert your prediction, because insert your reason. And let me just show you. You can go down to number 3, and here I have it written out for you. So you can highlight this, press delete or backspace, and go ahead and write in your prediction. So I predict that the advisor will lay a trap. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing for this section over here, except I'll write my reasoning. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Okay, let's move on to the second section of this review lesson, the big question. So our big question for this unit was, what kind of knowledge is important for us to learn? I've only got one question for you here, but it does have a few parts. So I'd like you to list one piece of knowledge you learned from one of our stories, which you believe was important. Then explain the story that piece of information came from and why you believe that piece of information was important. So this one's got a book, so that means it's a question or study guide. Now, I know that we've read a lot of stories in this unit so far, in this quarter. So I'm going to give you a quick refresher over some of them so you can think back to ones that may have given you a piece of good info. We read Rambling Around at the very beginning of this whole quarantine e-learning time, and that was a brief essay about Woody Guthrie, a man who wandered the U.S. and wrote folk songs. And it's page 165 if you want to read over it again. Drive-In Movies was our second story, and that's an autobiography. Remember, an autobiography is a story that an author writes about their own life, and it's a true story. So, an autobiography about a time that the author tried to convince his mother to bring him to a drive-in movie by doing chores. Remember, there's like waxing the car, mowing the lawn. That's on page 186. Names/Nombres was a story about a girl named Julia who struggled with her identity as her American friends mispronounced her and her family's names. That was page 196. We recently read Langston Terrace, which was another autobiography. In fact, I think Names and Nombres was as well. About a time in the author's life when she had to move. At first she was afraid, but then she ended up loving her new home. That's page 208. And then lastly, The Pigman and Me, our most recent story, and I think probably my favorite out of all 4 or 5 of these. This was a story about a boy who had to get ready for a fight with another boy that he accidentally injured. Page 218. So if you need to go to any of these stories in our book to kind of review them and see if you can find an answer to this question, you can do that right now. I'm going to back up so you can take another look at the question, but if you need to pause the video right now so that you can see these little recaps, go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so remember, our story is this. Give me one piece of knowledge you learned from one of our stories that you believe was important. Go ahead and write that down. All right, part 2 of this question. Explain the story that piece of information came from. So just tell me the name of the story that came from. All right, last part, part 3. Why do you believe that piece of information was important? If you're struggling to figure out a piece of knowledge you learned that was important, think of it like, what's a life lesson that one of these stories gave you? That counts as something that you learned. All right. If you have any questions about any of these review questions, let me know. We will do the rest of the review questions tomorrow and the day after. So don't send me questions about the rest of the review questions because we'll do those all together in the future. But if you have any questions about these ones, the making predictions, the big questions, let me know and I can help you out. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good day.